It is Saturday the 7th of the 3rd, 2026. The time is 6 minutes past 8 British, and that means, as always, one thing, that there are a multitude of F1-centric threads at which we need to pull. We will talk about qualifying. We will dissect for it the aftermath. Isaac Hadjar being an absolute gangster at the post-qualifying press conference, not entertaining any of the Mercedes gubbins or propaganda by dint of Kimi Antonelli and King George Russell. We'll talk about the broadcast and what they're missing. We'll talk about whether we've lost ourselves the essence that is F1. Now it's the Combined Harvesting Championship, no longer the Traction Championship. These guys going through turn 9 and turn 10, turn 1 at Albert Park, as if they're in reverse. What are we doing here? Have the FIA messed it up? We will speak to it. So too, we'll talk about Max Verstappen's instance, what caused it. We'll talk about Mercedes and the root cause of their dominance. Some say that they're anywhere up to a second on the rest. Oh, the humanity, the ramifications for the championship more broadly, and King George Russell of King's Lynn, Norfolk's chances of winning himself a Drivers' Championship. I'm telling you, it's going to get taken. We go long. Craig, you're an absolute legend. Welcome to the Elated Peddler Gang. Let me show you this in the first instance. I want to play you some clips because Lewis has reacted. So too, Toto has reacted. Kimi, George, everyone's reacted. And I think some of their words are worthy of reference and worth us reacting. In the first instance, however, let's talk about the broadcast. It was always going to get techie for Crofty and Martin Brundle. The upper echelons of their ability were always going to get tested in this brand new rule and reg set. You've got to be able to understand it's the state of charge. What are they doing? You've got to be able to tell the narratives, and they don't even have the bloody information because the teams don't want to share it because there is competitive advantage in it. Crofty's getting things wrong, so too Martin Brundle. Your charisma and your English boy banter can only get you so far when you have an educated audience. Brundle, Crofty, Schiff, Pinks, Simon, you need to be able to add value, and I would argue for the longest time they have not been adding value. Bring back James Allen, bring back friend of the channel Peter D. Windsor. Make Nico Rosberg an offer that he can't refuse. Sack off Jenson Button. Throw him on the same bonfire as Danica Patrick, I would argue. Jacques Villeneuve can take him or leave him. As your play-by-play guy, surely Alex Jakes is right there. Do you know what I mean? If I'm paying 90 gazillion pounds a month for Sky Sports F1, the privilege, I want to see 90 gazillion pounds worth of broadcasting. It's not like we're not out here watching other sports. You see the overlap, English football, Premier League. You see the level at which they're operating at. You see Micah Richards and Kate Abdo. Do you know what I mean? You see Jamie Carragher. You understand this. You guys in America see Stephen A. Smith, ESPN, Sports Debate, Mad Dog Russo. You see all these guys and you will understand the extent to which we're being misrepresented. This is $1 billion entity in F1, and therefore I would put forth this supposition. We need ourselves a commentary team commensurate to how good the sport can be. Let me show you this as well. I feel like I've got to put some respect on Toto, the boy who cries wolf name. Indeed, I might have to retire that moniker, right? I mean, he made a promise to Sir Lewis Hamilton that one day he'd build a car capable of winning races and therefore championship. Of course, he's a day late and $1 short. Sir Lewis is nowhere to be seen at the boys and girls from Brackley and Brixworth. Since he's moved on to pastures, and you mentioned no names, Scuderia Ferrari, to which we'll speak to in a couple of seconds, but it looks like they built themselves a car at the very least. 0.8, chat. 0.8. It didn't even look like George Russell was driving the car. He wasn't at 10 tenths. And let me tell you how you know. Context is key. Kimi Antonelli yeeted his car into the barrier. Turn 1. They barely had enough time to turn that car around, to build it back and get him out in time for qualifying. And then once they did, do you think they had time to set the car up? Absolutely not, chat. And yet and still, where's Kimi Antonelli locking out the front row alongside George Russell with zero setup? We are having this conversation underneath the following aegis. This is a difference in extent of Mercedes dominance, not kinds. 8 tenths. That, ladies and gentlemen, is chaos. And they played it brilliantly, have Toto and Mercedes and James Allison. I mean, you only find out the extent when we get to Australia, because the rest of them would have been canvassing in real time, as Lewis Hamilton is now, for a change in the fudging rules, the compression ratio. That Mercedes car, they say, is far too powerful. The FIA need to get ahead of this, level for the competitive landscape. That's their job, is it not? One of their key strategic objectives. Round 6, they will introduce ADUO, of course, additional developmental opportunities and upgrade opportunities. And in there, you bet your bottom dollar that the likes of Ferrari, so too Red Bull, Ford, they will look to build into their power units exactly what this Mercedes has got. Efficiency as far as its maximal velocity, and so too as far as its battery deployment, the way it charges, the way it can hold pace for longer than the rest. When you look at the telemetry, you will see, and again I should have brought it up on the right hand side of the screen here, but I will describe it for the avoidance of doubt. When you compare George to Hadjar and Scuderia Ferrari in particular in their very sexy small turbo, you can see that George is holding his pace for longer, and that's not just because of the PU and its power, that's because of the way they've integrated for it. Some might say that McLaren, surely they've got the same PU as have Williams, as have Alpine. Why aren't they up there? Well, two things are important to note. In the first instance, the brand new updated PU, they've only just got it now, whereas Mercedes was testing and toggling with it in Bahrain. In the second instance, their software, the management using which the car speaks to the battery and the PU is next level. They've got Google, where everybody else is using Yahoo, antiquated stuff, and that's where their durable competitive advantage lies. It's techie. I feel like Toto's rolled himself a couple of sixes here, and I think he's deserving of some credit and praise. I'm gonna see the snide smile on Toto. Oh my gosh, that gif or GIF is going to go around the world. Let me show you this as well, though, because I've got to put some respect on Toto's name. Again, forward facing. The forecast is this. The conversation that we'll be having is, where will Max go in 2027? Lest we forget, he has himself a clause in his contract that stipulates outside of the top 2 as of the summer break, and he can null and void his Red Bull Racing contract with immediate effect. Where do you think he will go shortly thereafter, and who will he replace? Well, I don't think it'll be Kimi Antonelli for a couple of different reasons. I feel like if he has his pick of the litter, as he does, Maximilian Verstappen falls, some say soon to be 5-time, he will drop kick in the chest, or facilitate Toto drop kicking in the chest one George Russell instead of Kimi Antonelli. Remember, their mates are Antonelli and Verstappen. Some say that Antonelli, by dint of his performance at Brazil and so too Austria, cost Max Verstappen his 4 soon to be 5-time championship last year. But Max forgave him, right? Elder statesman settings. He won't forgive George Russell for Barcelona, however. And some say, if rumour and speculation word on the F1 curb is something in which you wish to be invested, that Max Verstappen will, as a proviso, ensure that he drives next year at Mercedes alongside Antonelli and not George Russell, who by that time, if past his prologue, will be a 1-time champion. Let me show you this though. Put some respect on Toto's name for a second, Cameron. Let me show. Everybody needs a manager like this chap. Do you know what I mean? Kimi Antonelli eats it in the barrier, and what does Toto say? Can you imagine Christian Horner? What are you doing? This is F1. No mistakes. Mitigate and minimise for the... Here's what Toto did. Rate it highly. Roll the clip.
At least you know the reason what it was. What it looks like. Have you ridden the curve the same way before?
I rode a little bit more. So much confidence.
Yeah, it's okay. Keep the confidence. Keep the confidence. Keep the confidence. Keep the confidence.
Keep the confidence, says Toto. At least we know why, the reason, what caused it, and we can fix for it going forward. Continuous improvement, engendering within his young charge, Kimi Antonelli, now in his sophomore season, confidence. And I think that's worthy of mention. You know why? Because Christian Horner wouldn't have done that. You saw Liam Lawson scared to death, biting his nails to the bone, saying that the one thing that he needs to get his feet underneath the balls that are red table is time, and that's the one thing that he doesn't have. Antonelli has the environment around him cultivating success. They're encouraging him. They are rooting for him. Fair play to Toto. I don't hate that he's I mean, that's how you need to manage these young bucks, right? Especially if you believe that one day Kimi Antonelli could grow into a F1 butterfly and become like the chap that he looks like. Everyone keeps saying he looks He looks like the dead ringer, uncannily like Ayrton Senna. I don't know, the jury's out. Let me show you this then, if we're going to have the conversation about the bloody racing, because it's techier than techie things, this. Courtesy of Racing News 365. Let's have a look at the qualifying lap. The pole of George Russell this year as versus the pole of Lando Norris this year. And again, it's not just about speed, is it? It's about delivery. It's about what the cars look like on track. It's about the sound of these cars coming towards the end of straights, turn 9, turn 10, going into turn 1 at Albert Park, and it sounds like they're running out of puff in the upper echelon formula, motorsport formula in the world. Take a look at this. Lando, of course, you know, he's already out of shot, isn't he, pretty much, Lando? He's just killing them. Back in the day, yeah, and I know I sound like an old man comparing yesteryear. Oh, F1 used to be so good. But how can you debate that graphic? Lando Norris last year gone clear because he wasn't running out of puff every single time he was on a straight. Albert Park is always going to do this right. 8 seconds of an 80-second lap is how much time they spend on the brakes. Monza will be similar. But bloody Nora, as far as Formula One's concerned, that is not a good look. Hadjar isn't playing, mate. We'll get to Hadjar, I promise you. Techie, let me just fast forward to the end of this so you guys can see. It's material consequence, that differential, isn't it? Look at that. He's not even on the same part of the track. What are we doing here? Yeah, I don't like this. And again, shout out to the guys over at Racing News 365. This graphic tells you all you need to know. But it's not just about pace. We're invested in the house, right? I don't want to hear the bloody drone of the car running out of the battery, running out of puff as they super clip and desperately try. Look at that. 3.4 seconds delta. What are we doing, chat? This isn't good enough. I swear. I think they're going to have to do something. And Max Verstappen has spoken to it. Right, we'll go to Max Verstappen's comments a little bit later. Combative, 1000%. Justified, 1000%. Because he's been saying this for about 3 years now, that when he got into the simulator, it was always going to be the managerial championship. Combined Harvester GP. What are we doing here? George to the advantage of Mercedes said the following things. He was asked about whether Mercedes was sandbagging, to which Toto earlier responded, well, we put a little bit more fuel in the car to the tune of 10 kilograms because we didn't want to show our hand. We wanted to hide our advantage light under a bushel, lest we wish for FIA to change the rules and cut our advantage balls off. Here's what George said on the sandbagging circumstance. He was like, well, we weren't sandbagging. It's just that the likes of Ferrari like to show all of their hands early on. Do you know what I mean? They give it all up, all of the goods up on the first night. This Scuderia Ferrari have passed his prologue. Take a listen to this.
Started coming in. Was there anything to that? Were you holding anything back for qualifying, or was it just incremental changes in the right conditions?
Well, I think it wasn't a case of us sandbagging. I think it was more a case of some of the other teams showing more than we would have expected in winter testing. And we've seen this on numerous occasions in the past. Obviously the Red Bull looks quick, and we know, how incredible a driver Max is as well. So, I'm sure, Isaac's done an amazing job to be in this position. Who knows where Max would have been, and I think we said this from the outset, they look to be one of the biggest threats. But yeah, I can't even remember what the question was, to be honest.
Behave yourself, George. Are you talking about, you're still talking about Red Bull Racing are a threat? Of course, in the hands of Max Verstappen, he would have been closer to George than Isaac Hadjar, 3/10, potentially, or 2/10, some say, Pierre Vacher. But bloody Nora, George, you've got yourself an advantage. The gig is up, young sir. Sir John says, drivers, unplug your engines. Very good. Very good. Very good twist on the legendary phrase. Gentlemen, start your engines. I'm telling you, it's a bit techie, this is, and I don't know how to feel, chat. I don't want them to change it so early because, again, Mercedes have earned their advantage, right? But I feel like they may I feel like they may have to. I watched F1 for 41 years, for 40 years, says Mark. I missed at most 10 races. After today, I'm ready to finally let it go. This is no longer racing. Give it up, OF star. Oh, the humanity, TWM. It is true, right? Go on then, Mark. That makes me sad. But I don't think you're going to be the only one. It can't be a combined harvesting championship. It can't be. It has to be traction limited. I was watching the onboards today and I get the excitement going into turn one to see how they're going to handle it. It's a crescendo, right? There is no need to suspend your disbelief because you're going to see whether these guys can keep it on the black stuff, notwithstanding the gazillion miles per hour that they're taking through these turns. And then as they approach turn one, just before turn in, all of a sudden you hear the drone of the engine and it's like, oh, what are we doing? What are we doing? Spoiler alert. It's really, really bad. So I don't listen. I think you're not the only one, Mark, USA. Or USS4. I think you are not the only one. I anticipate that a gazillion die-hard veterans are going to start to dial out, become disenfranchised with the sport that we all know and love. Take a listen to this though. Again, we're talking about the gap between Mercedes and the rest, lest we forget. 0.6, 0.5 some said, as far as the long run pace exhibited by Mercedes as versus the rest during free practice. Charles Leclerc yesterday, remember we reacted to it. He was looking, he's like, I thought we were there. We are not there. Charles Leclerc today reacted as follows.
To the hot hole tonight is that we've got a lot of work to do, and Mercedes, I had a bit that feeling yesterday. I thought it was 5-6 tenths. It's 8 and it's a huge gap.
Got a lot of work to do, Charles Leclerc. And it's not you, Charles, nor is it you, Sir Lewis. It is Scuderia Ferrari. I don't want to go scorched earth on them, but they leave me with no option. Just when I thought I was out of Scuderia Ferrari slander and disparagement, they bring me back in. What are they doing here? Top of the timing sheets in Bahrain. Reverse sandbag central. They wanted to go back to Fiorano and Maranello with a big I am, with their chests all out as if they had done something they had not. Innovation, yeah, in and of itself it's good. The rotary rear ring, worthy of praise. The blown exhaust diffuser flap, also worthy of praise. The sexy turbo, which hopefully might yield some upside off the line in a couple of hours during the race, potentially. But bloody Nora, sort it out. That's not good enough, is it, from Scuderia Ferrari? Lest we forget, this is potentially Lewis's final tour. Now, I know he has an option for 2 more years. Charles Leclerc will be looking over across at Mercedes, having conversations with Toto, the boy who cried wolf, in real time. How much patience can one man have with one team? Of course, it's romantic from Charles Leclerc. Of course, he wants to win a championship, not with any team, but with the red car and the yellow badge and the black prancing course atop. But how long can he wait? This feels like another season when they're nowhere near. They're a gazillion miles behind the race lead. And again, Frederick Vasseur potentially finds himself with 5 races before Gonzo. P45 settings. Wayne, you're a legend, mate. If you're a brand new member, get yourself over to community tab and do yourself a favour. Get yourself in the Discord using within which space we continue this F1 conversation. Let me show you this as well then. Charles Leclerc talking about the gap, 8 tenths. What are we doing? And Lewis Hamilton was none too pleased either. Fix your fudging car. If it's compression ratios, then why haven't the FIA changed the rules? Says Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton.
Are you surprised by that gap to Mercedes, and do you think you can take advantage at the start tomorrow? Because your starts seem to have been phenomenal in the practices we've seen.
I think what's clear is that they didn't show the engine power through any of the practice because there's the whole talk of compression ratio, and they've obviously done a really solid job with their engine, which we have as well. But it would be interesting to. I want to understand why it's like 2 tenths or more just through power per sector. And so if it is a compression thing, I want to understand why the FIA haven't done anything and what's being done to rectify it. But if it's not and it's just pure pet, then we have to do a better job.
I don't understand, Lewis Hamilton says. If it's a compression thing, why the FIA haven't done anything to solve. Lewis Hamilton over the radio and Charles Leclerc too, complaining ad nauseum about a lack of power at the end of straights. Here's what's happened, chat. And the K's are over at autoracer.it. I will link the full article in the description. He expounds upon this better than I've seen anybody else. There's a couple different things happening. In the first instance, Mercedes as a works team versus Mercedes the customer. It's not just the PU, nor is it the battery. It's all about the way that these things interact. Read the bloody Adrian Newey book, How to Build a Car. Now more than ever is that design synchronicity important. It yields durable competitive advantage. In the first instance, as far as Mercedes, their bloody power unit is efficient. The maximal velocity is high. Why? Because they built in this massive turbo as versus Scuderia Ferrari. Now, there are upsides and downsides. Off the line, you will see that the nimble, smaller Ferrari turbo tomorrow will yield benefit. I don't think they'll be P11 to P1 again, but potentially they'll gain a couple places. However, if you're talking about if the bottleneck in 2026 is holding pace, maximal velocity because of bloody super clipping and the battery and its output and all this other stuff, then you want a big turbo in there that can hold that maximal velocity as far as is possible. Super clipping and clipping notwithstanding, Mercedes have done that. In the second instance, again, as versus the customer teams, their sexy software that interacts with the battery and the PU is god tier, proper market leading, pioneering, innovative. Do you think the rest have that? You bet your bottom dollar they do not. And that's why they don't have the same efficiency. That's why when you look at the curves, the pace traces of Mercedes in the hands of George and Kimi as versus Scuderia Ferrari, Buds, Lewis and Charles in particular. Mercedes are up here whilst Ferrari are down here. They lose it quicker. They're talkier coming out of the turns on the exit. But as far as the bloody, when you get to the end of the straights, again, turn 9, turn 10, turn 1, nowhere to be seen. Mercedes have thought this through, do you know what I mean? They've addressed the key parts. They know what time it is, and I don't hate it. They've gotten the assignment for once, and it's about bloody time, is it not? Surely, again, 2022, they said that they were going to divest out of the 21 project with a view to focus on the new rule and reg spec. Came out the box with a bloody zero pod concept that only led to porpoising, not good enough, and now this is a catch-up, a cruel success. That's why you get the gif of Toto, the boy who cried wolf, looking like the cat who got the cream. Let me tell you about Isaac Hadjar. I'm starting, listen, here are my favourite drivers. Of course it's Max, of course it's Lewis, of course it's Carlos Sainz. I've got to throw Isaac Hadjar in there. Telling you, I think that dude's doing something special. Now, he's always been a gangster around Australia, apart from last year at the start formation lap. Had to go off crying, hugging Anthony Hamilton. But again, even grown men cry, right, sometimes. This year, I mean, look at that. Is that Isaac Hadjar? Or is that Scarface? And again, photo courtesy of Kim Illman. Tell me that you don't care without telling me that you don't care. He's a spiritual heir to Yuki Tsunoda's throne right of not giving a fudge. And I love this. And again, he doubles down in the press conference. Listen, let me tell you this about Isaac Hadjar in the first instance. The context is key. You see that normally good drivers go to be late to rest in that second seat over the bulls that are red. Mention no names: Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, Speed, also bloody Tsunoda-san, Liam Lawson, Checo Perez. All of them go over and they all have a hit rate of 0 on a long enough timeline in that second seat over at the bulls that are red. The survival rate is always 0. I am hopeful for this chapter. This Isaac Hadjar. I thought that he didn't have the minerals in the first instance when he lost F2 at the final hurdle to Gabby Bortoleto. I thought maybe he's a bit of a mistake merchant, a bit of a bottle job. I take it all back, Isaac Hadjar. I think he's all right, this chap. Now, is this me saying that he's going to smash Maximilian Verstappen? You bet your bottom dollar it is not. I could not be so churlish nor foolish. This isn't the time to be an F1 abbot of unreason. But is it me saying that it'll outperform all of the aforementioned in Perez, Albon, Speed, bloody Gasly? I think he's a better driver than that, and I think that his uppermost potential ceiling is higher than them. Don't believe me? Well, listen to him at the press conference. And I know there's nothing in it's a bit of a much to do about nothing to say. He looks and feels like a champion and he sounds like one. But there is a don't care in his voice that only reminds me of the legend that is Alain Prost, after whom he has his nickname Le Petit Professeur. Check him out in the press conference, or I'll play the clip and we'll react to them. Isaac Hadjar just being a gangster.
Rebel second seats, some of your predecessors have struggled. I know you probably believe in your own ability, but is it still a bit comforting to show immediately what you can do so that doesn't become a talking point?
Well, I mean, we have the same car, so it's who drives better that does the better job and has the better results. So, yeah, that's it.
What a breath of fresh air, chat. In stark contrast to Checo Perez said, oh, well, Max gets the car and he gets the upgrades and he gets this zero victimhood over here as far as Isaac Hadjar. Yeah, no, 100% Stanley. Isaac's reflexes at Monaco Tunnel. Sometimes I tell you something. Mark Hughes writes of young drivers that every once in a while there'll be a cheeky anecdote. They'll do something. There'll be a flash of brilliance, a bright light that will burn hot, but very briefly. And I think Isaac Hadjar's was that. If you look at Fernando Alonso, 0506 130R on Michael Schumacher. Lewis Hamilton, race 1, round the outside on Fernando El Plan Alonso. There are these moments, fleeting instances that show you the potential of these young, hungry lions, hot prospects. And I think Isaac Hadjar might have had another one today. That's not bad from the dude, and especially during free practice. Did he not head Maximilian Verstappen? And if we do the F1 maths, come on, Max Verstappen is not a bad peddler, and if you best him in race 1, FP free practice nevertheless, I think that's worthy of mention. And I'm impressed by Isaac Hadjar doing that. He's just like, you know what, whatever, there we get the same machinery. Listen, whoever wins therefore is the best driver. I'm loving Isaac Hadjar, I'm telling you. He continues when talking about the cars. Listen to this. Gangster, Isaac Hadjar.
Yeah, I mean, I think the car is, on the chassis.
Go on, this is a longer clip. Important that I contextualise it. In the first instance, Kimi Antonelli and the Mercedes boys are asked about the differential between this car and last year's iteration of what's the difference, because it's getting controversial now. The combined harvesting championship, to use the phraseology of one Stuart Codling of Autosport. I mean, we can't stand for this, right? But of course the Mercedes bods are going to pad their own book. Why would they want to change the rules when they're 8/10 down the road? And Kimi Antonelli speaks to that in the first instance, shortly thereafter followed by one Isaac Hadjar, who rebuts all of that gubbins. Listen to the clip and we'll react to it.
Side, the cars are better than last year. They're much softer. Ride is much better, no bouncing. They're lighter, so much more agile in change of direction, low speed. Obviously in high speed we're lacking downforce compared to last year, but first of all, the previous generation had, the faster you were going, the more downforce you were getting, because it was a ground effect car. But with this car, it's going to be probably impossible to match the high speed. But I think as a starting point on the chassis side, the car is very nice, and I don't think we're that far from 2022 lap times. So I think obviously it's the first race, and the car is just going to improve massively throughout the year. And then
you just smell the propaganda on this, Donny. Like, of course you're going to say that. If you were slow, I'd expect you to say something else, Antonelli, but because you're 8/10 down the road from the rest, of course you're going to want stasis as far as the rules and the regs.
Of course, on the Pew side, it's very tricky. But, it's also part of the game, and that's why, the teams that are able to get it first, especially on energy management in this kind of track, can make the difference. So, yeah, it's part of it, but I think the car itself to drive is very nice.
Isaac, your thoughts, please?
I think the chassis is pretty good, and the rest I'm not a fan.
I think the chassis is pretty good, says Isaac. Le petit professeur. I think the rest, though, I'm not a fan. The Combined Harvesting Championship. Isaac Hadjar doubles down, expounds on his gangster status. Have a listen to this. Oh, here we go. You can't hear this one.
Yeah,
Fair play.
I think the...
Mate, I'm loving Isaac Hadjar's work. Oh, and by the way, if we're talking about controversial, you will recall Lando Norris rage baited Max Verstappen when he was complaining about the rules a couple of weeks ago, when he was shedding light on the difficulty of driving these cars and the fact that it is anti F1, that this feels and looks a lot more like Formula E as versus previous iterations. Mention no names, 24 and 25. I hear it, games and music. That's my bad. Here's what Lando Norris has said though recently. Again, remember, he said that if Max doesn't like it, Max can go and retire. Do you know what I mean? That we all get paid a gazillion pounds to race these cars. And what Max wants to do, says Lando Norris, incumbent, one-time drivers champion, is that he can go away and retire, or STFU. Now, Lando Norris today, you would have seen him picking up some debris. In the first instance, he said this. There's something about this Lando. EasyG, close your ears for a second. There is something about Lando Norris that I want to point out. You recall, I want to say at Baku last year, do you remember when he got his lunch money stolen at the altar of a cheeky Max Verstappen restart because he said he was tinkering with his brake bias, doing a Lewis Hamilton in 2021, Baku brake magic. I don't think that's championship behaviour. Of course he got it over the line, and for that he deserves credit. But when he says things like these, I think it's a bit techie, especially given the fact that closing speeds are dangerous. Material differentials like we saw Lewis over the course of free practice, it is not a good look. You understand that this rule and reg set is inherently dangerous. If you start super clipping and clipping, the rate at which they cross the line, you know they're not going quick at the start of these laps, as versus somebody that's just finishing a hot lap going into turn one. Like, it's techie. So you've got to be on your P's and Q's. Here's what Lando Norris said after crossing. You saw him earlier during qualifying run right over the debris, roughshod as if he wasn't looking. Well, he confesses as much. He says that's also the problem. You have to look at the steering wheel every 3 seconds to see what's going on, what's going to happen even. Otherwise, you're going to end up off the track. It's why I don't see the debris. I have to look at the speed I'm going to get to the end of the straight and know if I need to brake 30 meters earlier, 10 meters later. This is chaos, chat. I tell you what, I remember George Russell, and again, I could never do what Lando Norris is doing in that car, but I remember George Russell tinkering with the steering 5 times at the Singapore Grand Prix qualifying session last year. 5 times. George learned his lesson when he yeeted it into the gearbox of Alonso a couple of years ago at this very same fixture, Albert Park, that he needs to know off the top of that. He needs to be a touch typer on the steering wheel, because that's what the best ones do. Now, of course, listen, I understand Lando and I should leverage some empathy, but when he's out here rage baiting a couple of days ago saying, well, listen, if you don't like the rules and you don't like the cars, they're not bad, then you should go and retire. He says that and follows that shortly thereafter with this. Lando Norris said, listen, we've gone from what I think were the best cars in Formula 1 to the worst. Now, hang on, Lando. Out of which side of your mouth are you speaking? Good sir, I'm telling you, this is a problem. It's almost like the consensus now. Everybody said that the rules are bad and it doesn't lead to good racing and definitely not great qualifying. Combined Harvesting Championship. You remember George said, listen, I think we're going to do a lot of managing. This was last year before he had himself 8/10 worth of advantage. Max Verstappen has come out and said, listen, on the sim, I saw all this coming. It was always going to be techie than techie things. Lando now concurs, since it doesn't suit his purpose, right? Realising that he and McLaren are a long way behind. Let me show you this as well. I think this is interesting, courtesy of DB. These are the memes that are going to go around, and this, I think, is why Stefano Domenicali et al. Might want to take a look at themselves, have a word, and consider changing for the rules. I don't know what the panacea is. I don't even know if there exists a silver bullet to fix for this melee of a rule and reg spec, but they need to investigate it promptly, because the downstream ramifications are of material consequence, super negative. Imagine if Max is already talking about doing more NLS races whilst we don't have Bahrain and Saudi. Do you know what I mean? He almost feels like he's 1 foot out the door. Hadjar doesn't like it. Lando doesn't like it. Alonso's talking about a chef could drive the car quick. It's like, what are we doing here? This is no longer a traction limited championship. And I would argue that has always been, in the 76-year history of Formula One, one of its central tenets. My heart goes into my mouth when I see these guys go through these turns, Maggots and Beckett's. Imagine at Silverstone this year, Maggots and Beckett's. And you can hear the engine just like derating and super clipping. That's not F1, surely. So these memes are going to continue. And I think they're a serious undertone. The best jokes have serious undertones and memes, and I think that is one of them. Dominicali, by the way, had something else to say. Have you heard this? This chap, propaganda. Do you know what I mean? Is this 1984? Are you telling us how to think? Catch 22 settings. Stefano Dominicali said, it is wrong for the likes of Verstappen and Hamilton to speak negatively about F1. So let's argue the case for Stefano Dominicali. Of course, these guys get paid a lot of money, 70 million per year for Sir Lewis, and I'd guess that Max Verstappen is probably on more. Should there be gratitude? 100,000%. But we are in the attitude era. Lest we forget, Liam Parker, Chief Communication Officer of Liberty Media, the commercial rights holder, said that this is content. Content needs to be truthful, therefore, and you can't gag your drivers. If they have something to say about the rules and regs, you bet your bottom dollar they should say it. You can't have these two things exist in the same space. Liam Parker, Stefano Dominicali. It can't be content and then you wish to gag the bloody drivers, notwithstanding the millions and millions that they get paid. I think that's wrong. Stefano Dominicali said, I'm going to read it out in full because I think it's important, and then we'll dissect what Max Verstappen said today in response to it. Stefano Dominicali says, about the rules, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good because we have the duty of bringing positivity in this. What's he on about? What is he talking about, chat? Duty of bringing positivity in this moment. Can you spell propaganda? Are you telling me what to say and what I need to believe? Bringing in positivity in this moment of what we live in. Some bloody therapeutic coach again. He sounds like Lewis the other day, talking about love and butterflies and all this other nonsense. I feel good, says Stefano, because, quote, there is a lot of attention about what is happening on the track. Behave yourself, Stefano. Maybe there's a translation difference here. Maybe it is culture. But what are you talking about, mate? People aren't talking about good things, what happened on the track. People are talking about the bad things, the derating of the engine, the fact that at the end of the straights, it's anticlimactic, chap. It's really, really bad. Honeydicking. I'm waiting for these guys to challenge themselves, to face down the physical challenge that is traction limits, to manage the car on and around the limits of traction, like Max Verstappen has made an industry out of doing. Alonso before him, Sir Lewis too, like Charles Leclerc can do. We're not even getting that opportunity now. Turn 9, turn 10, it's like they all have to flick the car into reverse about what's happening on track. Behave yourself, Stefano. He continues, quote, I feel good because we're in Melbourne. He's propaganda, isn't he? Yeah. This is propaganda central here. I don't like it, Stefano. You're spinning us a yarn. You're asking me to disbelieve the evidence of my own eyes and ears, and we shall not, Stefano. Nobody likes this, what you've put into play. Now, you might not want to change it, but don't lie. I feel good because we're in Melbourne with an incredible crowd, incredible passionate people. We have seen another step of being very attractive for the younger generation. Well, here's the problem, Stefano. If they can't translate it and understand the wheres and why falls, then Houston, you have yourself a problem. Lest we forget, you've already lost $2 billion on your market capitalization. You will lose more if this ensues. Younger generation, and that's thanks to what we are trying to do together. Together is the critical word there, Stefano Dominicali. You want to listen to your related parties, your key stakeholders that are the bloody drivers. That's why, not to mention that it's dangerous as well, right? The closing speed, telling you there have to be on your P's and Q's like Hadjar was in Monaco with Iwasa. That's why, sir, continues Stefano, I do believe that the strategy we have taken is the right one. Is he crazy, chat? What is he smoking, this fella? He cannot be watching, and he's definitely not listening to the feedback that people are giving him, to keep really hammering down, knowing that we can sit and be focused on delivering something more for our fans. Here's the problem, chat. Here's the Faustian pact that they signed. I get why you'd want to get Audi, the big name that is Audi, and Cadillac F1 into F1. I understand. It makes sense. There is a rising brand tide floats all F1 boats. There is a rubber stamp of it's not officialness. What's the word that I'm looking for here? I mean, it comes with positivity. Do you know what I mean? You get you just by default, by extension, you get more eyes on the sport, and I understand it. But what have you sacrificed to get that? I would argue that F1 has sacrificed more in getting Audi and Cadillac F1 than it's getting back in. Yeah, Cadillac F1 have their PR team and they're doing all this Super Bowl stuff and doing bits in North America. I get it. And that's worthy of mention. But I would argue in the medium term, they've probably lost more, especially if they stick with these rules and regs as they are combined. Harvesting Championship. What are they talking about? So John, you're a legend. Appreciate you, mate. How does Dominicali find the positive in F1? Eating it, so I know, mate. So John, it's a problem, mate. We're going to keep having this conversation as well. This year, continues Dominicali, we are bringing a new power unit for the reason that was obvious a couple of years ago. We wanted to attract more manufacturers. Well, at least he's been honest there. We knew that the sustainable fuel was an element that would be attractive for the manufacturers, knowing that in terms of mobility, manufacturers would focus not only on electrification, and that's why this project started. Here is the problem with that thesis, though, Stefano Dominicali. If I can get techier than techie things for a second. Problem is, you're a day late and $1 short. The way that the automotive industry is going, a blind man can see that it's not going towards electrification at the same lick that it was 3 years ago when you said you were going to do this change. Indeed, diehards are moving away from electrification. This is the problem. Old school cars with V10s and V12s have never been more sought after. The EVs, the rate of depreciation on them is prohibitive. Everybody's staying away from Teslas. Audi and the German manufacturers, the European ones more broadly, are reining their necks back in from diversifying their range and portfolio into EVs and hybridization. Okay, so hybridization is a thing, but again, we have this conversation underneath the following aegis. It is a difference in extents and not kinds. The infrastructure in Europe and North America, I would argue, is not there for EVs nor for hybridization. Not just yet. Let's revisit this in another 5 years' time. But fail fast, Stefano Dominicali. Do you know what I mean? Don't keep barking up this tree and lose yourself fans and therefore attention dollars, because there's not one F1 fan, casual or purist, that I've spoke to that likes what they're seeing. Turn 9, turn 10 with derating. Super clipping. What is it? What is even super clipping? Why do we have to do that? You're making corners into straights that don't even have to. This is nonsense. This, per Maximilian Verstappen, is not F1. Now let me talk to Max Verstappen, because he was asked by Rachel Books in the first instance about the crash. What happened? Because I was one of those ones that said potentially Max exhibited a lack of mechanical empathy, that he was doing something sexy on the downshift like he was on the first day of testing, with a view to charge the battery, to blip the RPM and expedite for the rate at which the battery is charged. To that, Max Verstappen said this.
Yeah, good question. I mean, I didn't speak to the team yet, or didn't look into any data, but to lose the car like that on the braking, I've never experienced that in my life. So I hit the pedal and suddenly the whole rear axle just completely locked up. So definitely a bit weird.
Anthony was looking at the SkyPad and he said he heard the downshift before actually sounded very odd, and he said the downshift before sounded odd. I don't know if that was
I think it already went wrong before the downshift, because I hit the pedal, and as soon as I hit the pedal, because you quite quickly downshift, right? But it already immediately locked on the peak of the brake pressure, basically. So yeah, something very weird, that's for sure.
Nothing you've experienced before in this car?
In my life. So it's really weird.
And just finally for me, I mean, for the race tomorrow, anything could happen, couldn't it? So you just have to look at it as maybe an opportunity. If you can keep the car to see the checkered flag tomorrow, you could still get some good points out of it.
That's the target, but I mean, there's so many unknowns, of course, at the moment, that we still need to get on top of. Yeah, we'll see tomorrow what we can do.
Thank you.
So in the first instance, apology owed to one Maximilian Verstappen. It had nothing to do with him and his ambitious downshifting style with a view to do tax avoidance as far as this rule and reg set is concerned. And in the second instance, Pierre Vacher came out and underscored Max Verstappen's point that it had nothing to do with downshift. It was all software management. And again, of course, it will have something to do with the battery, the wheels locking up at the back, but bloody Nora, or the axle locking at the back. But flipping Nora, what are we doing here? I'm here to see Max Verstappen, the best drivers, drive the best cars in the world and therefore challenge for race wins and championships. And already we see a mistake at the altar of the balls that are red. Not good, this. Not good, especially if you're dialed in to see George Russell get challenged. It's the big question, right? Can George do this on a rainy day in Scunthorpe? Can he do it when Max Verstappen is breathing down his neck? A fire-breathing dragon of a four-time champion in Max Verstappen breathing down his neck. And Red Bull will need to give him the machinery in order for us to get exam answers to these very pertinent exam questions. So John, you're a legend. Spending money to bring gamers into sport like Max instead of changing cars would be better use of marketing. 100%. So John, let me rein my neck back in for a second. I don't hate them rolling the dice and trying something, but what I do hate is them failing to acknowledge what is an ostensibly a humongous error. There is nobody, this is the generally accepted consensus, right? I haven't spoken to anybody that says, well, no, these rules have really worked out well, haven't they? I mean, it turns me on the way that the cars are go into limp or safety mode as you get in towards the... It's nonsense, though. I know Mercedes have smashed it and they're worthy of credit for that. But the rules are broken. Christian Horner settings. Fix your fudging car. Now, the context for this rule and reg conversation is this, because Max Verstappen said 3 years ago, didn't he? Look at this. I've seen the data when he was in the sim already on the simulator. To me, it looks pretty terrible. Unequivocal from Max Verstappen. This was years back. Remember, Nostradamus said this week, Max told them, but they did not listen. Max continues, it looks like it's going to be an ice competition. So whoever has the strongest engine will have a big benefit. Mention no names, Mercedes. Do you know what I mean? I've got to start calling Max Stradamus instead of Nostradamus because he sees these things. Whoever has the strongest engine will have the big benefit. I don't think that should be the intention of Formula One. You will start a massive development war and it'll become quite expensive in a cost cap era, to find a few extra horsepower. I think it should be the opposite. Oh, the humanity. Why didn't they listen to this, Joe? What are we doing? And Max Glazer Day keeps the envious away. Glad Max didn't get 100%. I'm glad he didn't get hurt. By the way, speaking to that, as far as the crash, you saw Max Verstappen get out the car and he was doing one of these with his hand, right? Which is interesting. You remember Danny Rick? I would always have Max Verstappen as one to do one of these. Because remember, when you're about to... There is a point past which you can't save the car. And then you're advised to do one of these, right? Take your hands off the steering wheel and brace, lest you wish to have a Danny Rick incident and break your wrist. Max apparently didn't do that because he was so keen to wrestle the car away from the barrier, which is techie. It is techie. It feels a little bit like a driver that's trying again to drive around its multitudinous foibles. Again, I think there's potential in that Red Bull car, and especially the way it deploys energy. If Isaac Hadjar can get close to George Russell in that Merc, then you bet your bottom dollar Max can get closer. But bloody Nora, I feel like Max realizes he's going to have to put the good ship Red Bull on his back again like he's done for the past 24 months and drag that team to the mountaintop of success again. It's going to have to be the difference. And again, I suppose for Max's legacy, if you're a Max Verstappen fan, this is only good news. But for his the probability of him winning a championship this year and staying at Red Bull into 2027, bad news. I want to say this, what Max Verstappen... Here we go. This is important. Some muggles called Cameron CC tweeted out. This is the killer stanza from Max Verstappen. I'm telling you, this one's techie. Here's what he had to say about how he feels about the rules and regs in 2026. Everything, he says, feels unnatural when I'm driving. Maximilian Verstappen says, It comes down to having to be on the throttle as little as possible everywhere to save battery. What is this? Chat. Combined Harvesting Championship is what it is. But why are we here? Stefano, surely the Audi and Cadillac F1 juice in this instance isn't worth the squeeze. If you need to give up your soul as an entity, as a sports franchise, to get another 2 teams in there, big names of course, but surely the downside vastly outweighs the upside. We are no longer F1. The bloody GP2 cars are going through, do you know what I mean? Or F2 cars, excuse me, are going, showing my age here. F2 cars are going through some of these turns quicker because they're on the old rule and reg spec. No, they don't have the bloody 50-50 ice and electric. This is nonsense. Max Verstappen expounds. He continues saying, quote, you also have to take certain corners differently so that on the exit you can save battery again. You then have to make do with what you have, but even then you don't have much. For me, Max Verstappen concludes, this has very little to do with racing. Touche, Maximilian Verstappen. You are correct, sir. And I would see you that, Max Verstappen. I would raise you this. It doesn't have very little to do with racing. It has nothing to do with racing. They're making out of these god tier corners straights. And this is Formula One, the upper echelons of racing. You can't. I think we're going to have to reappraise for that moniker, right? How can F1 say it's the upper echelons of motorsport globally? I just simply, I don't think it can. Not anymore. Not under the current rule and reg spec, can it? Non-rhetorical question that I'm bringing to the jury and the congregation. F1 and the FIA will have learnt the hard way. Mate, they're learning the hard way is the problem, and they ought to fail fast, right? Every man and their dog. It sounds like all of the drivers have come out and said, what are we doing here? Although worth touching on at this point, you heard that Bortoletto, that they were going to change the bloody straight mode, turn 6, turn 9, I want to say. It was Bortoletto that said he was experiencing a lack of grip at the rear and that potentially it was dangerous. At the altar of the rules and regs, take away straight mode, therefore turn 6, turn 9. The FIA said, well, if you're talking about danger, we don't need that in Formula 1, do we? No, we don't need any of that. So let's take it away. To which the other teams and drivers were like, what's Gabby talking about? No way. We're already struggling for speed. Do you know what I mean? We can't hold the maximal velocity longer than a couple of seconds. You're going to take away straight line mode. That will make this situation exponentially worse than it already is. Afghan, you're a legend. I appreciate you, mate, out here gifting membership. So you don't want to make it worse at this juncture. It doesn't need to be made worse. It's already bad enough. And so very quickly the FIA U-turned. And I think this speaks to something that's more insidious, worthy of mention. I don't think the FIA have a plan. I don't think there's a timeline for institution here. There is no critical path analysis. They are doing this random walk of implementation, and I don't think that's befitting. I don't think that's commensurate for a multi-billion dollar, $22.05 billion US dollar institution that is F1. I don't think it's fair, and I think they need to sort this out. Fail fast. Can't be doing it. We can't be here another 3 months from now. And is this me advocating for a change in the rules with a view to disadvantage Mercedes? Not necessarily, but bloody do something at this point. Turn 9, 10 no longer looks fair. It's not a turn, Julius. Not in the truest sense. Not a traction limited turn. And that surely is taking away the soul of Formula One. Afghans, you're a legend. I appreciate you, mate. That is 1 in a million. They need to reinstate the effing turbo back. So they've got the turbos there, silent. The turbo is there. And I mean, Mercedes have done well by having a big turbo, which means they can hold the maximal velocity longer than a Ferrari with a smaller, more nimble turbo. But again, there are offset. You'll see in a couple of hours when we start the race when Ferrari, they'll be like Fernando Plan Alonso in 05 and 06. Rocket fuel starts, right? Oh, yeah, I saw, which was donated a third one. You're a legend, Afghan. I appreciate you, mate. Operation Epic Fail. Feels like that a little bit. Although Starfish, just play devil's advocate for a second. Am I being a bit too hasty? Should I have condemned the existing rules to DEATH Am I being a bit premature? Perhaps, maybe, because this isn't the first time that noddy, old-schooled, grey-bearded F1 vets have done this. Mention their names: 91, 2014, 22 as well. And it's always all right on the night. In the end, maybe. So, John, you're a legend. Afghans, which is legend, Afghan, proper legend. A longer range. That's what they need. They need a longer range. And what's the panacea here? Bring back V10s, eh? But bringing back V10s at this juncture is going to be, you're going to need lead time. It's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars worth of R&D. Will Audi stay then? I just don't even know, but it depends on the direction of the automotive industry, because F1 always wants to be the disruptor and the pioneer, the leader, the bastion of automotive innovation, leading the charge from the front, blah, 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 blah. Nice too, but sorry, you're a legend, don't be daft. You're a proper legend. No, Max warned us 3 years ago. I know he did. He warned them and us that this was only an inevitability, that we were going to be in a combined harvester of a championship. Mention no name, Stuart Codling. Never in history a driver has had less control over his F1 car as they have today. In many ways, they're indeed passengers. So go on and stand to that point. If you're to believe the Mercedes bods, they say that the car's more planted, that it's more nimble, that it's better able to absorb curbs, as an example. So it's a better drive in that sense. If they sorted out the bloody the power drain because of the limited capacity, but then you can't just put in bigger batteries is the problem, because you've already got the risk of thermal runaway. These batteries that just spontaneously combust and keep burning ad nauseum. Do you know what I mean? That's a humongous risk. What are the marshals going? At some point this year, God forbid it doesn't happen, touch wood, but at some point this year, one of those batteries, given the conditions under which we race and the heat and the ambient and the track temperature, the distance, the length and breadth of some of these races, bet your bottom dollar that one of these batteries is going to go pop. Of course it is. I want to see what the marshals do then. Have they got the training to put out these batteries that caused forest fires all over the world? Do you know what I mean? That invalidate home insurance at some places in they're dangerous, these things are. And I don't know, I think there's a cost from being too innovative too quick. Bring back V10s. Easy G, you're a legend, welcome anyway. It's not even the F2 engine, more the F3 if you ask me. It's not good. F1 is now not pioneering, it's going backwards, says Silent Hour. It feels like it, mate. Feels like it's all a bit performative, isn't it? Ticking boxes with a view to get Audi and Cadillac F1. What would Audi have done if we said, nah, it's all right, we'll just stick to V8s? You think Audi would have called our bluff and said, well, no, it's all right, we'll pass, we'll come back in? Can you imagine V8s and V10s? In all probability, it will be V8s when they do it. And bless Mohammed Ben Sulayem. He was one of the only ones saying, a couple of years back, or like mid last year, was like, let's go V8s. Let's sack off this nonsense. But it was too late by then. Is the problem. Not the year of the horse. I mean, we were alluding to Lewis Hamilton being about the year. Oh my gosh. Those comments, Lewis Hamilton saying it's the year of the horse. We're going to reinvent ourselves. I remember who I am now. That sounds maybe, Lewis. But if you don't have the wheels underneath you, do you know what I mean? All the innovative bits and bobs notwithstanding, then Houston, we have ourselves a problem. It's not that bad. I'm enjoying it. See, Corporate, I love the fact that you can play devil's advocate. We're not all the. You're the first person that I've heard say that, to be fair, that it's not that bad. What do you think, Corporate, when you hear this car just dying? That pant-wettingly annoying whir when it runs out of juice, going into the turn. I'm just like, I realise, you know what this has made me realise, chat? That the gift of F1, the most exhilarating part of it for me, is when you get these cars taking a gazillion miles an hour through the turns and sticking it. I remember a couple of years ago in the wet, Max Verstappen going through P1. I was convinced that he was going to yeet it into the barrier because it didn't look like the car would be able to take that pace through that turn. So that's always been the King's Gap, my main reason for watching. I think that's F1's raison d'etre, is it not? That's the point, to see these ridiculously speedy vehicles, these fire-breathing dragons, thread the needle through these super tight turns at breakneck speed. That's one of my principal reasons to watch. And if you take that away, it's like fudge. The biggest anticlimax ever. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just not, I don't know. I find it really, it's jarring. I find it really jarring. It's more about having the corner. Lewis will be good. Go on then. You think Lewis will be all right? I can't disparage Lewis. Lewis did all right in qualifying, to be fair to him. Like Colt LH will look at the P7 or wherever he was and be like, no, that's a bonfire. Do you know what I mean? A dumpster fire of a performance. But I'll always look at where Lewis is to Charles. If Lewis is within 0.2 of Charles, as a part-time Sir Lewis Hamilton fan, I'll take that. I'll take it, as Cameron likes to say, oh, the humanity. I love it. Using the terminology. It's all about software doing that's horrible. Wayne says, trophies. Oof. Eighth, Wayne, you think? No, mate. Ambitious. Not beyond the realms of possibility, but very ambitious. Here come the battery fires. But this is just very stupid that the overtake now is always on a straight. Is so boring. What do they do? It's Charles, I would reserve judgment for now, mate. We'll see in a couple of hours, when we get ourselves a race proper, to see how it all plays out. You guys have been legends. I appreciate you each and all, to the moon and back. I'll be back, I want to say 3 a.m. British, 3 a.m., 3:30, well, maybe 60 minutes before lights out, and the race proper, and I'm here for it. Monza's going to be a killer, Ben. Don't even do it, mate. Monza will be a proper dumpster fire, because again, it's more power hungry, right? More demanding of the battery, which is already the soft, vulnerable underbelly of this 2026 rule and reg spec. You guys have been legends, one and all. I appreciate you. See you in a couple of hours for the watch along of round 1 Australian Grand Prix Albert Park 2026. Between now and then, guys and girls, may all your sectors be loyal.